It's interesting as we reflect on, the discipline of change management. And I have to tell you, if you ask just about anyone who considers themselves to be a change practitioner or a change professional, how they found their way into this discipline, you're going to find lots of different stories. For me, myself, I graduated from university and I went into the work in the space of information technology
Ooh,
and was working with organizations for many, many years who were implementing large scale technology changes and in many cases investing millions of dollars into those changes. And I just continuously had this sinking feeling as I was working with customers and clients that they were missing something really critical. And of course, my work was focused on information technology strategy and design and development and delivering solutions into the space of change that were focused on what we would consider the technical side of the change, not just technology, but what was changing. And I just always had this gnawing feeling that we were missing something significant. And I always called it end user adoption because I really just didn't know what to call it other than the fact that our investments in technology are not going to deliver the benefits that are intended if we don't help people who are going to be embracing these changes to use them effectively and to apply them as they were designed and to know how to do what we were asking them to do. And in 2006, I was at a client in Boise, Idaho. And I still, even I remember the day and the room and everything that was going on because it was one of those professional moments that really anchored for me. But the client said to me, we've got a training class this afternoon for all of our managers. And so the people you're working with are not going to be available. Do you want to just sit in with us and join the session? And of course, me, I'm like, well, of course I do, right? Any opportunity for some professional development. And the program that they were sitting in and being introduced to was being delivered by ProSci. And it was about change management, and it introduced the 𝐜𝐿 model and the individual transitions that every single person goes through to realize the successful outcomes of change, both individually and organizationally. And I had a moment where I thought, oh my, there's the piece. There's the piece I've known in my gut and in my professional ability to see what's missing. It has a name. It's called change management. And there are models and methodologies and practices and organizations that support, equip, and enable people through change. So I just did a deep dive on change management as a discipline, what ProSci was doing, what others were doing in the marketplace. And just a few years later, I was asked to launch a change management practice for the same company that I was working for. So I had an opportunity to shore up a professional aligned method to focus on not just the technology and what we were delivering in change, but also to help people go through the change process so that the technologies are successfully adopted and benefits are realized. So it was that moment in 2006, and then just, doing my hard work of learning the discipline and studying and reading and watching every podcast and learning about what it means to help people through change to come to the point where I felt like I was equipped to be a change leader and a change practitioner and to carry that forward in terms of the services that we offered as an organization. So that was my path from IT into change management. The early thinking around change management was, well, we've got communications and training. Isn't that change management? And certainly communications and training are critical components of effective change management, but it's not the entirety, right? There is so much more in the depth. And it was interesting, you were just talking about just read a book and do it, right? Why can't we just read a book and do it?
mm,
And, gosh, I read lots of books and it didn't mean that I was still able to do it, right? The knowledge to ability, which by the way is captured, right in the middle of the 𝐜𝐿 model, right? From awareness through desire, through knowledge to ability. and then reinforcement. And knowing how and being able are two very different things. And you'll see that perfectly as an example if you put me on the golf course. So knowing how to hold a golf club and swing a golf club does not mean that I am able to play golf.
Mm.
And I just read an interesting article that it just comes to mind as we're sitting here chatting, and it's really probably something your listeners would explore too. It's the idea of simplicity that sits on the other side of complexity. So when you first learn something about a discipline or an organization or something that's going on in your life, you're sitting over on the simplicity of I just know a little bit. And sometimes the assessments that we make or the way we communicate is simplistic and reductive. But it's when you dive in and you get into the complexity of things and you understand the nuances and the connections and you synthesize your thinking and models to the point where it almost becomes intuitive. And then
Mm.
you get on the other side again, but that doesn't mean you're able to communicate simply, right? So there's lots of people who know lots of things who get caught up in the complexity and they're not able to communicate effectively. But then you get to the simplicity on the other side of complexity. And now when you speak from the point of knowing and understanding, but you can get back to simplicity and articulating. And that's really, models like 𝐤𝐿 is simplicity that sits on the other side of complexity.